Great. Hello, and welcome again to another episode of Catholic Ad Lib. We're going to do something a little different today, and we're going to cover a subject that, everybody knows, and then we don't know it. And the subject is love, and the subject is true love. And we have with us today a special guest. Her name is Brittany. Hi, Brittany.
Hi, John. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. It's really an honor. Thank you. I will tell you just as an intro that Brittany was married not long ago and to a young man, and she'll describe all that. But the hope here today is that Brittany can give us her little story of before, maybe during, and after. So the before is maybe dating, and we don't need the specifics, but where you were in your life, what you were maybe looking for, what you thought you were looking for. And then there was a time when you met someone. And I'll let you fill in the details. And then afterwards. So start with your story, real quick, where you're from, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. So Brittany, and now Libertor, because I married into the Libertor family, but I am 29 years old, and I just had my first baby. Her name's Gianna. She's the best. And I'm a registered dietitian, and I was from the west side, grew up in Parma at St. Charles Borromeo, and then moved to the east side in Wycliffe, and we belong to St. Robert and William Parish in Euclid, and then just recently moved to Menor. So I'm enjoying the east side life as much as I wasn't sure that I was going to. And just enjoying this new season of motherhood.
So let's catapult back to when you were, 16, 18, 20. As a young woman, you start to think of your future.
Yeah.
Gee, is marriage for me, etc. Give us a little bit of a flavor of what was running through your mind back then.
Yeah, absolutely. So back in high school, I was definitely dating and trying to find like what love is and what that means, and just hanging out with friends. And I did go to public high school, which I think made it more challenging to stay engaged in the faith at that time. I was very involved in youth group at St. Charles, which I think helped ground me a lot in my faith. I attended the Steubenville Youth Conferences, and I remember hearing so many talks, especially at the Steubenville Youth Conferences, about Catholic love, about raising kids Catholic, about, what does it mean to date in the Catholic life. And I chose to date people who were non-Catholic back in high school because I thought, well, marriage is so far off, like, what does it matter? And then, as time went on, realizing that I could never pursue a relationship with someone whose faith wasn't important to them. And eventually realizing through prayer and adoration that I could never marry someone who wasn't Catholic. And, I know that can work for some people, but deep down in my heart, it wasn't going to work.
You wanted to have that commonality with someone.
Yeah, because I realized how my faith was the most important thing in my life. And if I couldn't truly share those beliefs with someone else, it wasn't a matter of just going to church every Sunday. Like, I wanted to be able to talk about the deep theological values of our Catholic faith, and you can't do that with somebody who's not Catholic or who's not open to possibly conversion. Sorry. And so then leading into college and afterwards, really thinking more deeply about like what a Catholic relationship look like, and kind of going back to I still will never forget that Catholic Steubenville Youth Conference that I attended in high school, where a woman talked about her chaste relationship to marriage. And I'm just like, well, that sounds really nice, but like, who does that, and where do you find that, and I always just kept coming back to that talk and how deep that hit me.
And how old were you at the time?
I had to have been 16.
Oh.
Yeah, so very young, and realizing later on, after college and starting to seriously date with the intention of marriage and in mind. And I think a lot of people in their 20s don't necessarily have that mindset. They have the mindset of, oh, go have fun, be in a relationship, just test the waters, see what you like, see who you're compatible with. And I'm like, why am I going to waste my time dating
Right.
somebody who I can't see myself pursuing a marriage with? And
Does that mean, Brittany, that you had brief relationships? In other words,
yeah.
since you didn't want to waste your time.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So I had gotten out of a long-term relationship after I finished my master's degree, and that was with someone who wasn't Catholic because I came to the conclusion that I couldn't be with somebody who wasn't Catholic. So I kind of shifted my my level of importance on dating Catholic, and then had some other brief relationships, but nothing was quite what I was desiring. And I read a book, How to Find Your Soulmate Without Losing Your Soul, by Jason and Kristalina Everett, who I know are very big names in the Catholic industry, and just their approach to dating. It was, again, having a chaste relationship, and also something I really took away from that book was writing down a list of qualities that you want in a future spouse.
And you did that.
And I did that, and it was through going to adoration at the St. Charles Marici Chapel, Adoration Chapel, many times, just by myself in prayer and just contemplation of, okay, what am I looking for? And I had that list written down in my prayer journal. I was always going back to that, and they had just talked about how important that is to make that list when you maybe are single or when you're feeling very strong in those desires, because when you start to date somebody, it's so easy to get caught up in the emotions and how that person's making you feel, and you're getting that attention.
And might I also say, in their looks.
Right.
Which could be
Attractiveness.
the attractiveness, right?
The attractiveness, and again, falling into sin potentially with physical aspects where that's going to cloud what's important to you. And after reading that book and after making my list, I knew what I wanted, and that made it a lot easier for me to decipher upon meeting people if that was going to fit the mark for me. And I had some friends kind of tease me like, wow, your expectations are really high. And I'm like, why wouldn't they be?
Right.
And I think that if the Lord has the right person for me, whenever that is, I'm going to know because I have this list, and it was through prayer and adoration that I came to this list.
So I'm gonna try to make an analogy here.
Please.
Bear with me.
Please.
Because most times they're really goofy. But hearing you, and nothing you say surprises me, you are a dietitian.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what's in food.
Right,
You know the
right.
good, you know the not so good, the
Right.
fillers. I picture you in a grocery store going down the aisle looking for maybe not a product,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to use somebody as a product.
Right.
But you're looking for something with all the right ingredients.
Right. Looking for the best pick.
The best pick, the healthiest pick.
Mm-hmm.
Because you knew, it wasn't a matter, I believe, of just your picking. It was, you knew the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the dietetic world, you know from study, from science, what have you,
Right.
that this product is actually good.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
As opposed to other products that sound good
Yes.
or look good and aren't really because of what they contain.
Right.
Good analogy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love
Okay.
it.
Okay. So it's a matter of the truth. Would you concur?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it wasn't just your preference, but you knew in your heart,
Right.
and you attribute that to spending time with God in adoration, in
Certainly.
quiet.
Oh yeah, because the going through breakups, going through separating after a short-term relationship, like that's still damaging. It's still hard to deal with those emotions, and even dealing with the season of singlehood, which can be lonely, and it can be this time of contemplating, God, like, when are you going to send me, if you are going to send me that person? I had even had a brief period of discernment where I just had gotten to the point where I'm like, God, are you calling me to, pursue religious life? Like, I had just gotten to that point of total surrender to whatever his plan was, and I was so filled with the desire to be a mother ever since I was very little. I babysat from the time I was 12. I loved being around little kids, and I had always desired marriage, but I had gotten to the point where I felt so close in my walk with the Lord that I said, okay, whatever your will, I'll do it. And it was about 2 weeks after I had like admitted, to God that I was open to that call, was when I met your son Brian at a tech retreat meeting. So tech stands for Teens Encounter Christ. We're going to plug it here because we love tech around here.
It's hard not to.
It's hard not to. But Teens Encounter Christ Tech is an intergenerational retreat that I actually had the privilege of meeting you and your wife Paula on through volunteering on weekends and meeting up at different community events. And I had no idea that you had a son my age who was, now I know he was the perfect fit for me. And then it just so happened that Brian and I both volunteered on the same tech retreat weekend. And leading up to the retreat weekend, you have several meetings with your team to get prepared. And during the course of those meetings, and we would spend time together in between those meetings, we came to realize that it was something true there. It was something
I think
real.
I can picture you and Brian at those meetings.
He was volunteering for everything. Do you need a photographer on the weekend? Can I help with this or that? Can I help bring things to your car? Do anything that
Very
he
accommodating.
could. Yes. Same.
Anything to spend time with you.
Yes,
maybe.
he had a servant's heart from the moment I met him, and that was something that I wanted. It not necessarily was on my list per se, but I knew that he came from a great Catholic family, and that was really important to me. Because I knew that, even just thinking in the future of raising children, you want to feel comfortable having a family surrounding you who's going to help build your children up in the faith. And so there were so many things that I, really came to admire about Brian, and he fulfilled everything on that list that I had written.
Yep.
Which I think was absolutely no coincidence. That was all God.
So, I'm going to share, I don't know that I told you this. Maybe I have.
Okay.
But it was a situation where, and I don't recall the event, but you were there for sure, and a young man that I guess you were dating him. I don't recall.
Mm-hmm.
But we went out for a bite to eat,
Mm-hmm.
and it just didn't seem. I didn't know you really. Mm-hmm. The little I knew you, I admired you.
Mm-hmm.
But it just didn't seem like that relationship was clicking.
Right.
It was very one-sided.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember after that hour or whatever, and there were things about that encounter that were a little bit odd, that were kind of signals. But I wasn't judging. But I remember thinking after that evening, oh well, this young lady is not for Brian, I guess, because.
Yeah.
She's that's stupid for me to say, but you have these ideas and premonitions
Right.
especially as a parent that run through your head.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I wonder who.
Right.
And I just thought, oh well, I'll move on.
Yeah.
And she'll go her way, and we'll go ours.
Well, and that's the funny thing, because getting to interact with you and Paula in that encounter at dinner, just getting to know you both more and getting to know your family more. You were telling us about your kids and everything. It was funny looking back now how comfortable it made me to come and meet the parents when Brian and I did start dating, because I already
Yes.
knew you and I knew
Yes.
who you were, and I knew how wonderful and welcoming you were. So it is funny how God prepared my heart in that way.
So let's get to the heart of the matter.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Love.
Mm-hmm.
You, I think you're an example of you have hope.
Mm-hmm.
You had hope.
Mm-hmm.
However, I mean, it's not often easy, and the hours that you spent in adoration,
Mm-hmm.
there may have been a time where you wanted to say, God, are you even listening to me?
Mm-hmm.
Do I matter?
Mm-hmm.
And then, lo and behold, here's this young man who you meet. And if you can, try to describe the feeling when you knew.
I know this answer perfectly.
You do?
Yes, I do. It was actually before Brian and I officially became, boyfriend
An item?
and girlfriend. Yes, an item in
I
a
like
relationship.
to say an item.
Yes. It was, I believe, September 23rd because it was my parents' anniversary. And
Between 2 and 3 o'clock? No,
yeah,
I'm kidding.
no, it was in the evening. So Brian and I, like I said, leading up to that retreat, we had several meetings, and there was supposed to be a praise and worship adoration, like a big event, like concert type praise and worship adoration at a West Side parish, and for whatever reason, it ended up getting canceled, but we had planned on attending that with some other friends. And of course, everyone was disappointed that it was canceled, and Brian had reached out and said, hey, would you still like to go to adoration together tonight? I know we can't go to that event, but, I'd be happy to meet you somewhere. Do you know somewhere close by your house that has an adoration chapel? I was like, well, actually, St. Charles Marici Chapel, my favorite adoration chapel that I would often walk to because it was so
Alone.
close to my house,
Alone.
right? Alone, yes. And I said, how about that? And I knew he was on the east side, so I was like, I know it's not close, so we can like meet at another one. He's like, nope, that works great, because of course some of those adoration chapels have passcodes that you have to use to get into. So he's like, okay, she knows, like we can get in there.
Right.
So we met up, and that evening it was my parents' anniversary, and I told them, hey, I'm gonna go to adoration, and just kind of played it very low key on.
That was your parents' anniversary?
It was. So we had dinner together, my family, to celebrate, and then I left and went to
So
adoration.
you wolfed down dinner.
Yes.
And then
And I was like, all right, I gotta go. So we went to adoration, and we just sat there and prayed in the front row. And it was a very small adoration chapel there, probably holds like maybe 30 people. And I just remember Brian was sitting to my right, and I was gazing at the monstrance, and like just in my view, I could see him, and I just had that feeling in that moment, like, I think I'm praying next to my future husband. And that was just very overwhelming and beautiful. And it was one of those, I started tearing up, and I'm like, this is crazy. I hope he doesn't see me. Like, he's going to be like, what's wrong with this girl? She's crying. But we spent.
I want to make sure I'm clear.
Yes.
How long had you known him?
About a month. Yeah, about a month at that point.
You were.
That we knew each other, that we started to spend time together.
Okay.
But that was so we had prior to that attended a couple of group events together. Theology on Taps were very common before COVID, where people would get together for a Catholic speaker at like a local bar. And it was great. Definitely a lot of like young people our age attending those, and so we had gone to a few of those together. And then this was the first like individual time by ourselves, which I thought was perfect, like getting to spend that in adoration. And again, it was just so different than any other relationship that I ever been in and experienced, because our first date, you may say, was at adoration. And coming to reflect on that now is just so beautiful. And it was funny, we were in adoration together. We didn't have firm plans on like how long we were going to spend in adoration, and we had spent 2 hours in adoration, which I think was the longest time silent adoration that I had ever spent. And so that was like a long, beautiful, time. And then we spent about 3 hours after that just walking around the parish grounds at St. Charles, just talking, getting to know each other. And it was, after that day, I knew that he was the one.
Yeah.
I hoped, I prayed, I'm like, I don't want to get my hopes up here, but
Right.
this is what I'm
Right.
thinking. And
Right.
Brian told me after that he felt the same way.
Felt the same way?
Yeah, he had gone to, and we had gone on a few dates after that, and just realizing like how much the other person truly wanted to get to know us. I couldn't believe how many questions Brian just asked about me. He just wanted to deeply get to know my heart and get to know my family. And that was when he had, again, before we even became an item, he went back and told his roommates, like, oh, I'm going to marry her. And they about choked on their food then when they were having dinner, talking about it, just because we were so certain from that early on that was it. And so I think it was about 2 weeks after we officially started dating. After the retreat weekend, Brian had asked me to be his girlfriend, and 2 weeks after that, he told me that he loved me, and I knew I felt the same way. And 7 months later, he proposed, and then 16 months after that, we got married. So, yeah, it was it was awesome.
So the theme, the undercurrent, is as I look at you both, it's faith, and trust in God,
Mm-hmm.
and that He's the most important, which allows you to have that bond, that relationship together, right? You both know what's most important.
And I think going to that point, just prior to Brian and I meeting, I was listening to a podcast, and Matthew Kelly, another influential Catholic speaker and author, was being interviewed. And he said this quote, and Brian and I say it all the time, especially to our friends who are still dating and searching, is nothing is more attractive than holiness. And I
Great
remember listening and hearing that quote right before meeting Brian, and meeting him, I reflected on that quote and I was like, it makes perfect sense.
And Brian's holiness was sincere.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
It wasn't he was trying to impress you.
No,
It was his life.
it was.
Right.
And I think you just go to think about like the saints that we honor and adore, we're attracted to them because of their holiness. We're attracted to our faith because of the holiness that, priests or religious or whoever is embodying. And I think that hearing that just really made me continue to focus on how faith was so important and why it never worked with anyone else prior to that.
Yeah, true. That's a great point. That's a
Yeah.
great point.
Yeah,
Well, thank you.
of course.
This has been great.
This has been great. So,
Yeah. Well, we hope to do it again with a few other people, and we will. I want to thank Brittany for sharing her journey, her marriage journey, I guess, and some of her faith journey. She is an awesome addition to this family. We are just really, really blessed. I don't know another word. I don't know.
and I feel the same way. I know you introduced me as Brittany, but I'm also your daughter-in-law, and I'm.
Yeah, I was originally going to keep it a secret that you were my daughter-in-law, but
Yeah.
you let the cat out of the bag early, and I thought,
That's
oh, what the
okay.
heck?
It's an honor to be a part of this family,
Well,
and I
thank
never
you.
thought
You
that
make
I.
it better. You make it
Thank
better.
you.
You
Thank
do make it better. Thank you. And thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back with you soon.